Welcome to another edition of Roxim Live. I'm your host, Tim Van Milligan. Thank you for showing up today. This is being live streamed on Facebook. We are also, excuse me, going to be posting the video on YouTube later on after it's done recording. So if you're watching on YouTube, always remember we're live at 10 a.m. on Fridays. That's Mountain Time, so if you're on the East Coast, that would be 12 noon. Today, we're going to cover, until we start getting some questions in, we're going to cover where some of the files are located on your computer for using Roxim. If you haven't used Roxim before, let me show you where you can download a free trial or where you can actually make a purchase. So let me switch to my desktop. So if you go to the Apogee website, this is what you'll see there. Just go to How To and Guides, go to Software, and you can go right here to Roxim Free Trial. And that will take you to a page where you can actually download a free 30-day demo. If you would like to purchase Roxim, go to the Shop menu. And then go to Rocket Software, and then just click on the Roxim icon right there. And that will be where you can make a purchase of Roxim. Okay, so if you have a question, go ahead and leave it in the comments field on YouTube. If you are on YouTube, did I say YouTube? I meant on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, what you'll have to do is to email those comments to us. Again, if you go to the Apogee website, over here on the right side of the screen, you'll find Talk to a Real Person, and then underneath that is the link for the contact form. And this is where you would click to contact us so you could leave questions on how to use Roxim. We do answer our emails pretty quick. But if you want it shown live on Facebook in this training session, be sure to say, hey, can you show this live the next time you're in Facebook? Okay, so let me just close that right now. So what I wanted to talk about was where are your files located in Roxim? Now, I've got two computers here today. I've got my a Windows laptop and I got the Mac laptop. So I'll describe both of those right now. So first off, there's two types of files. There's your Rocket design files, kind of like this one right here. So when you open up Roxim, see, I got Roxim open here. So this is a Roxim design file, and it has all the parts of the Rocket combined together to create a rocket design. Now those are stored in one location, and then your components, like your nose cones and your payload tubes, which are tubes, and transitions and fins, those are stored in a different location on your computer. They're kind of hidden. And we did this a long time ago because Windows operating system forced us to put those files in a different location. In hindsight, it was a bad idea to follow what they recommended, but that's where they are right now. And in the future, we may move them. And when we go to the cloud, they're definitely going to be off of your computer. They'll be on our server so that everything is stored in nice, neat locations. Okay, so let's first, where are the Roxim files themselves? So I'm going to just kind of put Roxim out of the way right now. So if you're on a Mac, you'll navigate to your applications folder. So if on your hard drive, there should be a folder called Applications, and you'll find your Roxim folder stored there. I've got multiple versions of Roxim here on my computer. This one built Roxim 0.0.0F118 is the current version that is being in use right now. the newest version that we're going to be releasing probably next week. We don't want to, it's actually pretty much done right now, but we don't want to release it on a weekend because we want to be here in case people have problems installing it. So we'll probably release it next week. Look for that announcement on when it actually is available on Tuesday in our regular newsletter. If you're not a subscriber to the Apogee newsletter, let me show you where you subscribe. You just go to the home page and you're going to see this banner bar right here. One of the banners will always be sign up for our free newsletter. And there's also a slide out here just in case you're on a different page. That's where you can, click on that and that will take you to our subscribe page. Well, you'll just enter your name and email. That's all we want, just your name and email. And then you hit the submit button and you're now on our list. And then every Tuesday we release a newsletter or a video to give you something of good value. And there's always going to be something good in there. We're not just going to, advertise to you. That's just spam. We're trying to help you become a better modeler and a rocketeer. So we're going to give you really good content. Okay, so that's the version that I've got running, which I just showed you a little while ago, is version 10.1, which is going to be released. And I also have a Roxim Pro because I also run that. Okay, so now if you open up your Roxim folder, this is where you're going to find your designs. So there's a folder called Designs, and if you open that up, this is the default location of all your Roxim design files. So here is an Apogee components, and it will show you, all the rocket design files. They usually end in .rkt, which stands for rocket. These other ones, these PNG files, these are files that I stored here when I was running simulations. It shows, when you go to that 2D flight profile, this is those images of the rocket taking off. These are stored in Roxim version 10 as little icons. They're called sprites. Every time the rocket moves or changes orientations, it needs to load a new sprite file, and that's what those are. And somehow I just dumped them in that folder. You can also store Roxim files in other places as well. As you can see here on my desktop, I've got 5 Roxim files stored here. One of the cool things in Roxim is that if you have Roxim open and you just drag a file onto the application, it will ask you, do you want to save your changes? And I don't care about that one. And then it opened up this other Roxim file. This was a file that a customer sent me. This is what it looks like. Now if on your 3D view, like I'm showing here, and your rocket is kind of not centered properly, just go here to the camera controller, which is the icon with the 4 arrows in different directions. Just click on that and then just say recenter or reset camera. So I'll just reset it, and then it just puts the rocket in a nice horizontal position on the screen. Okay, so let me close that. Okay, so you can store Roxim files in other locations. If you do that, just remember where you put them. It's not our fault if you lose where you stored your files. But the default location is in this, in your Roxim design folder, which is inside your application folder. So now let me go to Windows and show you on Windows where they're stored. So let me change screens here. Okay, so now we're on Windows, and I gotta use my my trackpad here because I don't have a mouse connected to this one. Okay, so now on Windows, you're gonna go to, let me make my screen here a little, I'm on the wrong computer. Make this a little bigger so you can see me just in case. All right. So here on Windows, I want to go to my C drive, and then I want to go to the program files, And then here is where you're going to find Roxim installed, and I'll just find it. Here's Roxim 10. I also have a Roxim Pro installed on my Windows computer. So if you open up the Roxim 10 folder, like on the Mac, you're going to find your design folder. And so here is basically the same thing as we just showed you on the Mac, where all your Roxim designs are stored. Again, let me, under View, let me change this to Files. Come on. Medium icon, let's call it Details. Okay, so here's a rocket file. This is the Hellerock. And it ends with .rkt. So those are your Roxim files. Now, the parts are stored in a different location, and they're not in the applications folder like I'm showing you right now. They are stored in a hidden folder. This was what Windows told us to do, what Microsoft told us to do a long time ago. So they're in a different location. So I guess it goes back to the question of why would you want to know where these are located? And when we're getting ready to release this new version of Roxim, people always panic and say, what happens to my old files? What happens to my old designs when I do an upgrade? Well, one of the things that we always tell people is, well, you can always take your files, just slide them out of their current location, and then move them back later. So that is kind of why we try to tell people where they're located, if you're really worried about it. Roxim is pretty benign in that it doesn't try to overwrite existing folders or existing files unless you give it permission. And I think I might be able to show you what it does in a little bit. We did have a question from Gregory King. Tim, for L1 certification, do you have any recommended kits? Greg, I can answer that one right off the bat, and that is the Zephyr kit. Let me go back here to my Macintosh. Go back so I can give you to the Roxim, or to the Apogee website. So if you go to the Apogee website and you click on the Home button, the perfect level 1 certification rocket right there in the banner bar. So you click on that and it takes you right to the Zephyr page. So Gregory, that is our recommendation. It's the perfect kit. And we designed it specifically for L1 certifications. So let me go back here to Windows. Okay, so on Windows, we're going to go to this users folder. So I'm on the C drive. So on your C drive, look for the users folder. Open that, and then you're going to find your computer's name. So on this computer, this is my daughter's computer that I'm borrowing from her. Her computer name is Ashley Van Milligan. Yours is going to be something completely different from this. So recognize that it's going to be what you call your computer. You know, it's like what you've named your computer, and that's what you want to open. So you're going to open that. Open. And then you're going to want to find this folder called App Data. Now this folder is hidden. This is the hidden folder. Now if you don't see it, and you probably won't, you need to go up here to View, to this View menu, and there's a button over here called Hidden Items. If that is not checked, this won't show up. See, now I've unchecked it, so now it's hiding all the hidden folders. So I need to make sure to go under that View menu and to show those hidden items. And now there it is, App Data. So we want to open App Data, and then we want to open the local folder. And then inside of there is the Apogee Components folder. And there is our Roxim folder, and this is the one we want to open. So now here is where your data files are stored. Now if we open that, we can see what's inside of here. So the first one, it says aerotech.rse. .rse files are your engine files. So these are all the Aerotech motors. Below that we have the animal motor file, and then the Apogee engine file. Now Apogee sells 2 rocket motors. We sell an E6 and an F10 that are branded under Apogee, so that's where they are. You'll also find Cicerone and Cicerone motors made for Animal Motor Works casings. That's the Cicerone _ AMW file. And then you also have these other files called data. So there's BH data, that stands for bulkhead data. And then there's usually 2 of them. One's a backup file, and one is the actual data file. And I think if you go to type, usually it will tell you if it's a backup. CF data stands for custom fin data. CR data is centering ring. EB is engine blocks. FS, I think, is fins, your regular fins. We have graphs. LL is launch log. So here are all your data files. That's where these are stored. So if you ever need to replace them or move them out of this folder, this is where it's located. Now let me go back up 1 level. So if I click the back button, it will go back here. And there you'll also notice in this Roxim _1 folder, there's a folder called data import. And inside of that is how we use Roxim ourselves to put new files into your existing file database. So when we come out with this new upgrade to Roxim, one of the things that we know that's going to be changed is the motor files. So for example, Aerotech and Quest have released several new motors since the last update to Roxim, and what we'll do is we'll dump them into this data import folder. And what Roxim does is when you restart Roxim, so if it's running and you quit and then start it again, what it does is it looks inside of this folder and it sees if there's anything in this folder. And then it's going to want to merge that data into your existing databases. So let me give you an example of that. I'm going to go back here to my my Windows or my Mac computer. So I'll go back here, and I think I'm done with Windows right now, unless there's a specific question about using Windows. So here on my Mac, where's my mouse? There it is. Let me close this. I think I have Roxim running. So I am going to quit Roxim, and it's asked me if I want to save. I'm going to say no. So now I'm going to relaunch it. And I know I have some files in that data import folder. And that's what this is right now. It's asking me to do a database merge. So it looked into that folder, and it's asking me, do I want to merge those files into my existing database? So what we recommend is if you're to just say yes to all. So there's this button that says yes to all, just merge them automatically. So now the only time that you're going to see some issues is if you have gone into Roxim and started changing parts in your database. So if you have a nose cone, if you have a nose cone and you change the name of that nose cone, but you change nothing else, so all the dimensions are the same, and then you saved it, and then you restarted Roxim later, and we've put new folders, new files into that folder, and you get this screen, and you say yes to all, So now you have a nose cone that was changed, and then you have a new nose cone that has all the same dimensions but a different name. So basically what's going to happen is it doesn't recognize that nose cone is overwriting the first nose cone. So you're going to have two nose cones in your database with identical data, just different names. So that's probably the only thing you're going to notice. You're going to notice multiples of the same part. And what you'll have to do is eventually you'll just have to delete them from your database. And if you want to know how to do that, you can ask that question and I can show you how to do it. So right now I'm going to say no to all, and it's just going to ignore everything that was in that database. So now on the Macintosh, let me show you on the Macintosh where those data files, because they're also stored in a hidden location on your computer. So what we want to do is we want to go to a browser window like this. You can open up any folder, get to this browser window, and then go to the Go menu at the top of the screen. So click on the Go menu, and now here's the little trick to see the hidden folders on your Macintosh. You have to hold down the Option button. So I'm clicking on my computer on the Option button, and you'll notice there's a folder called Library, and it's a hidden folder, and it only shows if you click on the Option button. So now I'm holding on the Option button and I'm going to double click on it to open it, and it just opened it up in the same browser window. So now here I want to go to Application Support, open that, and then open the Apogee Components folder, and then here is where the Roxim data is stored. Now remember, I have multiple versions of Roxim on my machine. You'll probably only have one. So yours is going to be Roxim_1. Open that, and then here is the data folder, and here's also that data import folder. So if I open my data import folder right now, you'll see I have all these files that it wants to import. And if I don't want it to import it the next time, either I would say yes when I was running Roxim, or pull them out of this data folder, just drag them out, drag them to the trash can. I'm just going to leave them in there for right now. But if you just drag them out, now the data import folder is empty. Roxim doesn't see that. It doesn't see any new data. And so when it starts the next time, it'll just ignore it because there's nothing there, and it'll just launch normally. If I go back up one level and I open my data folder, here again are my engine files, my .rse engine files, and my data files. There's the BAK, which are the backup files, and your CSV files, which are the actual data. Now, CSV is comma separated something or another. Basically, it's like an Excel spreadsheet. So you can actually open these up. Let's see, did it open? Yeah, and on my computer, it's going to open it up in a program called Numbers. You could open it up in something like Excel, and it will show you what is inside of here. Now I'm looking at the bulkhead data. So theoretically, you could edit these files this way. We don't recommend it because they're easy to screw up, but that's why there's that backup data file there. If you ever screw it up, what you would do is you would take the CSV file, throw it in the trash, and then rename the backup file, change the extension from .bak to .csv, and then it's like a CSV file, and then Roxim will find it and it will open it just fine. And now you got the default data right back to where you need it. So that was where your hidden files are stored, your data files, and also where your Roxim design files are stored. Hopefully you'll never need it, but we will point you back to this video if you ever do need it. So let me go over here to Facebook and see if there's any questions that came in. Bobby, who's our marketing person here at Apogee, he's writing a question from Tom Lecoq. Could you please remind how to add other vendor parts to the database nylon shock cords, for example. Okay, so the easiest way is when you're in Roxim. There's two ways to do it in Roxim. I'll show you the easiest way, which is the least complicated way. It's a little bit longer, but it actually works. So you just open up a design. Let me go to I'll open up a Desdemona. So here we have a rocket, and then we're going to go to design components. And so if you wanted to add like a shock cord, which is what Tom's question is, how do you add that? What you'll do, a shock cord is a mass object, because of any component inside your rocket that doesn't have a defined shape, you know, like something that's rigid, is going to be a mass object. So mass objects are like shock cords, nose cone weight, electronic payloads. Theoretically, a parachute is a mass object because it doesn't have a defined shape, but we actually give it a parachute part because it's used for the recovery of the rocket. So when you're adding a mass object, I lost my mouse again, there it is. You have to define where you're going to put that mass object in the rocket. So here I got two body tubes and a nose cone. I'll probably put it in the first one. There's already a shock cord in here. You can delete that, or you can add a new one. I'm just going to add a new one. Okay, so I'm going to click on the body tube. I'm going to say another mass object. And it brings up the Roxim database, and I'm going to cancel out of that because I don't really care, because I'm going to be adding a new one. I'm not taking an existing one away. So I'm going to go to the General tab, and I'm going to give it a name. And it doesn't really matter what the name is. Let's call it nylon shock cord. Under the classification, we're going to call it a shock cord, and we're going to give it a material. Now this is, if you're doing a shock cord, a shock cord could be it could be the same material, or it could be a different material. Let's do something that's the same material right now. So let's call it Kevlar for grins, and we're going to give it a length. Let's call it 12 feet. And the location, so right now the location is right here at the front of the tube, and we'll just move it back. And so it's this colored M right here. And let me change that color. Let's make it, that's the 3D color. We don't want that one, we want the 2D color. Let's make it bright red so you can see it. So here's our shock cord. Okay, and now what we want to do is we want to go to the database. So this is where we're going to save this new shock cord into the database. So this is my custom shock cord. And you're going to give it a part number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Doesn't really matter. And you can say nylon shock cord. And then click Save to Database. Okay, so then now I'm looking at the database, and it has my part number, the name, and a description. And when I click OK, it's now in the database. So let me go to, let me cancel out of here. Save my changes? No. Okay, so that new shock cord that I just made wasn't added to the rocket, so I'm going to add it back. So I'm going to go to Mass Object. And now when I go to the database, I should find my custom shock cord listed there. And there it is. And I can just add it back under the General tab. It still thinks it's that item. But that is the preferred way of adding parts to your rocket, is create the part. This is better for like nose cones than shock cords, because shock cords, it depends on the material, where a nose cone, You know, a nose cone is going to be usually one of the materials that's already in the database. So if you want to add a new material to the database, that has to be done from the rocket menu. So if here on the top of the screen, I have the rocket menu, and I want to come down here to edit material or edit database, and I want to go to materials. So I'm going to click on materials, and it's going to bring up the materials database. Now this one is a big chart. It's got a lot of columns. So let me make a lot of columns, room for a lot of columns here. Okay, and now we want to, you'll see a number of already shock cord materials in here. So like here's 1/16 inch braided nylon. Let's say I wanted to add a new braided nylon. Let's make it like 1/8 inch braided nylon. So what I would do here is I would say add new, and what it does is it puts a new item at the bottom of the materials database, and let's call it 1/8 inch braided nylon. And now we need to select what the units are of this thing. So what Roxim wants to do is it wants to calculate the volume, and then it multiplies the volume times the density, and that gives you a weight. But shock cords, it's usually a weight per length of material. So what I typically do is I'll go up here to a different shock cord material and kind of look at what it has for its density units, and it's showing here at the very top 1 inch tubular nylon. It's in units of ounces per inch. So I'll change this one, my new one, also to ounces per inch, and then I'll have to get a new density. Now the density is kind of misnamed because it's the units are actually ounces per inch. So you're going to take your new shock cord material and you're going to cut a length of that material, something that's easy to measure, but you want it really long because you want to get an accurate weight per length. So I would get maybe like 1,000 inches of this, and then weigh it on my scale. So 1,000 inches. So say it weighs 2 ounces per 1,000 inches. So then I would take that and then divide it by 1,000 to get the ounces per inch. So in this case, it was a 1/2 inch tubular. Where did that was 1 inch tubular nylon was 0.04 ounces per inch. If I have my new material, I know it's going to be less than that because this is 1/8 inch versus 1 inch. So it's probably going to be divided by 4 because it's kind of a fourth of the size. So it's going to be 0.01 ounces per inch. And then you just kind of look at the fixed dimensions. And if this one says the fixed dimension is none, then yours also should be none. So my fixed dimension inches over here is 1, or is it in inches? So I'll also choose inches. My value is 0, so I'll just leave that. And then we're going to say, can it be used for rocketry? And that's what this rocketry use column is. So you always, if you're going to add a new material, I assume you're going to want it to use it in your rocket. So go ahead and check that. You'll notice that there are some materials in here that are unchecked. Like here at line 117, we have a material called unobtainium. This is a fake material because you can't find it because it's unattainable. That's why we call it unobtainium. And it is not checked because you can't use it in your rocket. But most of the new items that you're going to be putting in here, you're going to want to check this for rocketry use. Okay, so now then we want to find the column over here on the top that is for shock cords, and it's right now it's the 5th one over. So I'll come down and I'll make sure that that is checked so that when you're in the mass object database and looking for shock cords, it should pop up. Okay, so I'm going to click OK here. Let's give this a weird name so that we can find it easier. So I'm going to call it my shock cord. Let's call it my custom shock cord material. And I'll say OK. So now it added it to the database, to the materials database. So if I go to the body tube and I add a new mass object, and I scroll down under manufacturer, let's see, it might be under description. So I'm resorting the list by description. Let me make this bigger so we can see it. Make this column really wide. And if I go here, I should be seeing my custom shock cord material. Oh, because this is not where I'm going to find it, because these are shock cords that are already saved. Like our first one that we saved would be in here, but this one is not, because this is just a material. So if I go back here to my part screen editor, I expanded it too big here. We're going to go here to the General tab. So this is under classification. We're going to call it shock cord. And then it brings up the material database. Now this is where we should see our my custom shock cord material. And there it is, right there at the bottom. So now we can select that and we can give it a new length, 1,000 inches, and it will tell us how much that weighs based on the weight versus length that we put in for the material. And then if I click OK, so then it added it to my body tube right there. So there's my new mass. It's actually right here on the front of the nose cone, because on this one I didn't move it back. Okay, so let's see if we have any more questions. We got 10 people currently watching this, so if you're one of those 10, go ahead and write in a question, because I'm ready for your question. I'm doing this video for you to try to show you how to design rockets better, faster, and easier. And if I don't get any questions, then I start rambling. So no new questions. So I'm going to start playing then. So one of the things that I'm playing with, and I talked about this in the last Roxim Live. My daughter is asking me questions. I can't answer her right now. I got to close out this. I got another monitor right over here. Okay, so let me go back here, and I'm going to open up Roxim Pro, and I also want to open up a program that you can download free on the internet called Google Earth, because I have a question that I want to know, and the question that I want to know is, where in the world are you flying rockets? So I've already downloaded it, and it's called Google Earth Pro, and if you go to earth.google.com, that's where you'll be able to download this program. And what it does is it gives you a planet, and I want you to find the location for me of your launch site, and I want you to give me those locations so that I can put it into Roxim Pro. So let me go to the Apogee website here. I got a lot of things going on. So if you're on the Apogee website, and if you type in launch sites, So the URL is apogeerockets.com/launch_sites. That will bring up this page on our website. Now this page shows all the clubs that we know of that are flying rockets. The red ones, I believe, are NAR clubs, and the blue ones are Tripoli clubs. And let's say we want to find a launch site. So let's scroll here to this one right here. And this is the Homestead Public Rocketry Club. They have a Facebook website. Now let's find one with a real website. Okay, so this is the Florida Space Modeling Association. I think this is Rick Boyette's club. Rick is a good friend. So he has this website. I am looking for their launch site. So here's their Dyer Park launch site. And Dyer Park launch site. Now, what I'm looking for is the actual location of their launch site. So here on your screen, they have a map, and I assume it's this area right in here, but they don't tell me exactly where it is. The range will be set up north. The range will be set up west of the parking area, northeast of the model airplane field, visible near the southwest corner. So I assume it's right here. Okay, so, but he doesn't give us the coordinates of this launch site, and that's the important thing that I want to know. So I'm going to copy this. And I know it's in Florida, and I know it's called Dyer Park Launch Site. So I'm going to go back here to Google Earth, and I'm going to paste in Dyer Park Site, Florida. Let's see what comes up. And it's going into Florida, which is good. Dyer Park. Oh, this is really good. This is working really great. All right, so here is, that looks very much like what we saw on their website. And he says that their launch pads are in the southwest corner, or where they're setting up the range. So I want you to go into Google Earth like I'm doing right now. And he says there's a model airplane field. And this looks like a model airplane field because it's got a runway. There's some tents set up. But I don't know where the launch pads are going to be set up. And where you launch is an important thing, because if you're launching over here in this corner, there's this nice little lake over here we want to avoid. But if we're launching over here, we're probably okay. So I'm going to guess, and I'm going to put a thumbtack right in where I think that launch site is. Okay, I'm looking at my Facebook, and I got another question from Jim. Can you turn off components for drag purposes, such as needed to create accurate graphics for fins? Can you turn off components for drag purposes? I'm not sure I understand that question, Jim. If you can expand on that so I can figure that out. Then Tom asks, have you previously discussed how to model odd parts like a tower on a Mercury redstone? Okay, that's a good question. I'll get right back to that one. We got 15 minutes left. I think I can do it. Okay, so first I'm here in Google Earth, and I want to put in a pin. So I clicked on the pin to paste where I think the launch pad is, and it brought up this little place mark right here. So I'm going to zoom in. Is that visible? Let me move this over so it's not hidden by my mug down here in the right hand corner. Okay, so where that place mark is, so now that the actual launch pad is going to be in the middle of this crosshair, and it's blinking on me, so it's like right here in the middle where my cursor is. I'm going to place a launch pad, and it's given me the exact latitude and longitude of that launch site. Now there's one other piece of information that we need, and that's also the elevation of that launch site, and this is above sea level. And it's buried right here at the bottom right underneath my face. So let me shrink this down so you can see that. Okay, so right here is the elevation of this point right here that I'm clicking on. So if I hover my mouse over it, the elevation, if you see right down there in the bottom right, it says 41 feet. So basically this launch site is 41 feet above sea level. That makes sense because we're in Florida. Florida is very flat and it's low. So 41 feet above sea level is that launch site. And then over here is the latitude and the longitude. And I'm going to put 41 feet above sea level, ASL. And this is the Dyer Park launch site of FSA, Florida Space Modeling Association. Is that what it was? Am I remembering the name of your club right? Let me make sure I got your club name. Florida Space Modeling Association. So let me go back to Google Earth. I'm clicking on a lot of things here. I'm hoping I'm not causing you to get vertigo. And what I want to do here is I want to save this information. So I'm just going to copy it by making a screenshot. So on my Mac, I just did Shift, Command, and the number 4, and it gives you these crosshairs. And I'm just going to drag my cursor around all that important information so I have it. And I'll click OK. And now I'm done with Google Earth. All I wanted was that location of that launch site so that I could put it here into Roxim Pro. So if I wanted to launch a rocket here, let's see if I can find a rocket that we can talk about here. Let's go with Saturn V. And I'm looking for a .rkt file. I got a lot of Saturn V's on my rocket. Maybe it's underscore. No. Here's one. Estes Saturn 5 zip. Anyway, I'll find one. And just go back here to my Roxim designs. Sort it by name. Apogee Saturn V rocket. Let's open that up. Here's a Saturn V. Oh, this one doesn't have the escape tower. I was trying to find one with an escape tower so that I could talk about that. Let's try Saturn 1B. Let's go down here to the S's. Nope. I've got so many. Let me go to my other Roxim folder, which I showed you before, just recently. Is in your design folder under Apogee. Apogee components. Apogee Saturn V. Saturn 1B. Ah, this one doesn't have one either. Okay. So we're going to have to figure this one out for to answer Tom's question. Okay, so what I wanted to do was to run a simulation in Roxim Pro using the launch site that we just found on Google Earth. So I'm going to prepare for launch, choose an engine, doesn't really matter, G64, let's go 10-second delay, and deploy the parachutes at maximum ejection delay. This one's got 2, because it's got 2 sections of the rocket probably. never deploy this one. I only want to deploy one. Starting state, we'll make it 60-inch launch rod, 4 degrees from vertical, launching to this azimuth angle, and that's a compass direction. So this is, if north is straight up, west is to the left, this is kind of, we're launching kind of to the northwest. Under launch conditions, so here's where I'm going to enter my new information on my new flight. This is regular Roxim, so I'm going to cancel that. Just want to hide it. Okay, so here is my data for the launch site for the Florida Space Modeling Society. So I'm going to, come on, I want to keep this where I can see it. Just move windows around. So it's going to be Dyer Park Site, FSA. Now my altitude is 41 feet above sea level. I'm going to assume my landing altitude is also 41 feet. And then the latitude and the longitude is 26.779739. Longitude minus 80.128388. And I'm going to save this launch site so it's in my database. And this is what I want you to do, is to find your launch site, where your high power pad is located. Send me this information. I want to know the name of the site, the name of the club, the latitude and longitude, and the altitude is above sea level. So that when we go running a simulation, I can display it in Roxim Pro, which we're working on, and we're trying to get this released as quickly as possible. Right now what it's doing is it's running the simulation, finding the location of the Earth, where it's located, and then it should pop up here any second now. So we get this screen, and this is our launch visualizer. This is what's new in Roxim Pro that's coming available. It has to load the map. It found the launch pad and the rocket, and oh look, there's our launch field. And if we look at it, there is our model airplane field, which we saw earlier over down here in the corner. And then our launch pad, I lost it. So if you lose your launch pad, just click on the home button, and there it is again. And when we run the simulation, I just want to make sure, see if I got smoke turned on. I have smoke turned on. I'll turn on tracking smoke. I'll change the color of my tracking smoke to something different. And click OK, and then I'm going to click launch, so I can see what's going on here with this rocket. See where it's going to land on this particular motor. And it's running the simulation. Down here we see a close-up of the rocket, and then over here is the same view but a little bit further away. We can see the parachute has now deployed, and I'm zooming in so you can see the parachute. And it's going to be landing, so I'm zooming out. And what it's trying to do as I'm zooming out, the reason it's so jumpy, it's trying to keep the rocket centered in the screen. Because I have the view on this particular rocket is to keep it centered in the screen. And you can see the rocket is going to land, and it's actually going to land within the park, which is really cool. So there is the rocket landing in the park. All right, so I was just playing there. It's awesome to see. All right, so now let's go back and try to answer some of these questions, because that's what we're here for, is to answer your questions. I'm over here. I'm looking at my monitor over here to see if I can answer these questions. So Tom says he wanted to do a mercury redstone capsule. So to do that, you would go into your Roxim designs. Now this nose cone, it already has a nose cone, and in this nose cone is mass. So this, we're going to have to delete this nose cone and add a new one for the escape tower. So now when you're adding an escape tower, realize that it doesn't actually add a lot of stability to the rocket, and it's just going to throw things off. So basically when you're adding it, you're just adding it for decoration, because it doesn't really affect the flight of the rocket, because that's more on the big tube of the rocket and the fins that control the flight of the rocket. So basically it's just to make a pretty picture. That's why on our Saturn 1B and our Saturn 5 we leave the escape tower off, because what's more important for us is to actually run good simulations. I had a design with an escape tower on it. I think we deleted it because it was causing a lot of confusion. But basically, if the design is already existing, you're going to have to delete the nose cone and then add this other part of the nose cone as a transition, because you can't really have, every time I do this, this means that I'm thinking about it, and there may be another way, another idea just popped into my mind, and that's using pods. And now I'm wondering if I can use a pod to make a escape tower. And so normally I wouldn't. In the past, I would take this nose cone and delete it, and then start adding new components in front of this part right here. But I'm gonna try to add a pod and see what happens. So it brings up the pod screen. Now the pod is just a placeholder. So let's call this the escape tower pod. And I'm going to uncheck this that says it can be ejected during simulations, because I don't want it to be ejected. And then with the location, and I'm going to see if I can do like a -4 inches and hit tab from the front of the owning part. So let's click OK. So here is the new pod, and now I'm going to add a nose cone to that pod. And it's going to be a custom nose cone. Okay, so this is, I'm playing here, and this is what you should be doing as you're playing with Roxim. You can't really break things. You can only override files, which we discovered last time we were here. Let's call this the escape tower nose cone. And the construction, I'll make it plastic, polystyrene plastic, and we'll make it hollow. I'll give it a thickness of 0.04. We'll give it a length. Let's see what happens. A length of 0.25, a diameter of 0.25 inches, and a length of 0. It's drawing some. Oh, I gave it a length of 5 inches, 25 inches, 0.25. Okay, so it added something out here. I saw that. And let's click OK. Let's add a tube to that, just so I can see it a little bit better. So I'm going to cancel out of that. I know it was 0.25 inches and an ID of 0.24, and I'll give it a length and see what happens. Okay, so you can see down here there's something going on. It's happening. And let's call it let's call it like 3 inches. And I'll click OK. So there's a pod out here, but it's not letting me see it because it's off the screen. This is something that we didn't anticipate, and it looks like it might be working. So let me go back here to this pod, change the radial position. So calculate the radial distance and the radial angle. The radial distance from the center line of the rocket, I'm going to make it 0. And let me go back to my general tab. Let me move it back a little bit. See, it's starting to move back. There it is. If you see down here, we can start seeing it. So I actually added something there. And click OK. Let's look at this in 3 dimensions. I'll probably get a better view. Oh, look at that. It actually worked. I learn something new every time I play with Roxim. I hope you do too. Okay, so I guess, Tom, I think that might answer your question. So we got some more questions over here. Oh, we got a bunch of stuff. Holy cow, we got a bunch of stuff. We're going to have to get to these next time. Reggie Morrow asks, I bought Roxim 3 years ago for a PC that never really had enough memory to run properly. Recently, I purchased a new MacBook Pro, and I'm happy to see that you now have a version for the Mac. We've always had a version for the Mac since about 2008. Do I need to buy the software again? The answer to that question, Reggie, is no, because you own it once. We're not going to make you pay for it again. But if you had an older version, you'll need to upgrade to the newest version. So if you had Roxim version 8, basically from version 8 to version 9 and version 10, there's an upgrade fee. But if you had version 9 before, version 10 was a free upgrade. So if you had version 9, you don't owe anything, Reggie. What you need to do, though, is to go to the Apogee website, and you're going to have us look in our database to find you. Unfortunately, there's a little fee for that. So let me go to here, and I'll show you how to do that, Reggie. You go to Roxim Software. You're going to go to Roxim Upgrades. Click on Roxim Upgrades, and you're going to see this Roxim license key regeneration fee. And what this does is it tells us to find your information in the past so that we can give you a free upgrade. Now, it's not exactly free because it costs you a whole $1. And I can tell you, we're not going to make any money on a $1 sale. We're actually going to lose money because of credit card processing fees and the amount of work that we have to do to give you the Roxim upgrade is going to cost us more than $1. But we charge $1 just to make sure that we don't lose you in the system. We get so many emails every day with people asking questions. We're worried about losing those emails. So if there's an order from you for even $1, we're not going to lose it because our books have to balance. So we're not going to lose that order. We're going to be able to look you up and to send you the information you want. So Reggie, go to this page, order that Roxim license regeneration key, and then we'll give you that free upgrade if you had version 9 in the past. If you had version 8, there was an upgrade from version 8 to version 10, and you'd also find it here on this upgrade page. And if you had an older version than that, you can see that the price goes up a little bit. But you won't pay full price, so we're saving you money. We are actually out of time, and we got all these questions. So what I'm going to have to do, Jim, we'll have to look at your question. There's a bunch of other things. Bobby's actually been answering a bunch of questions over here, so this is great. I appreciate what you do, Bobby. Bobby is going to be going to work for another company, so we're actually going to be losing him, so our marketing position is going to be opening up. And if you want to do what Bobby's doing right now, kind of like keeping me on task, doing these Facebook Lives, and doing our newsletter articles and doing all the cool things at Apogee, our marketing position is open. If you go here on the Apogee website, actually we haven't posted it yet, but there's current job openings. They're right here on this right-hand column, current job openings, where you can click on that to get more information about the jobs that are open. We also have the R&D job that is still open, which is designing rockets. It's a little bit more advanced than that, but if you're interested in that, that one is also available. Okay, so we're going to finish up this Roxim Live. I think it was another successful Roxim live, I discovered something new. I've asked you a question, and that question is, where in the world are you launching your rockets? And I've shown you how to send me that information, because we want to get that information into Roxim Pro. Because what that's going to do is it's going to, when other people in your neighborhood are using Roxim Pro and they go to the launch sites and they go to select a site and they're going to say, hey, there's one that's close to me. I should join this club. So what we're doing is we're actually trying to send new members into your club. And today we highlighted the Florida Space Modeling Association down in Dyer Park. If you're in that area, look them up on their website. I know Rick has been a member there for a long time. I used to live in Florida when I worked at Cape Canaveral in the early 1990s. And I used to drive down to fly with that club. It's a great bunch of guys. If you're not flying with a club, you really should be. It's Roxim. I said this one time about Roxim Pro. The great thing about Roxim Pro and seeing the flight visualizer, it's like being at a launch. But there's two things missing. One is the smell of the smoke, and the other is your friends. So if you're not there launching with your friends, you're missing out. I'm an introvert. I don't, when I'm around a large group of people, it drains me. But when I go to a launch, it's worth it. Because you learn so much new stuff and you get to interact with people and you see all kinds of cool things that they're working on, and you can share what you're working on. You can train other people. It's a win-win situation. There's nothing bad about not joining a club. There's nothing bad about joining a club. There's so many good things available. Join the NAR or join Tripoli, and they'll funnel you into a local club. And then if you join NAR or Tripoli, you can certify to fly those high-power rockets. So I'm going to sign off on Roxim Live. Our website is down there at the bottom at www.apogeerockets.com. Come visit us. Come send us emails. We love hearing from you. So until next week, have a great week, and keep those rockets flying high.